That's the Korg Triton plugin. We're going to check out a couple more. This is from the Legacy Collection, and tonight is the end of the 50% off sale Korg does every year for the holidays. So let's check out the ARP Odyssey plugin over here. This is, I don't think everybody even realized that Korg makes an ARP Odyssey plugin because, of course, Korg owns the rights to ARP now. Here is the Korg Wavestation, one of my favorite patches, Midnight Run. Sounds really phenomenal. And then here is the Korg M1. This is just some of the stuff that you get in the Legacy Collection. Yeah, so really awesome sounding stuff. So we're going to be checking out some of the Legacy Collection stuff. Like I said, it's 50% off. That means you can get all of Korg's plugins, or for the Legacy Collection anyways. The sale goes on till tonight. So if you're watching this stream in the future, unfortunately, I think the sale is going to be over. But yeah, it's really exciting. And there's just so much cool stuff. And we're also going to compare tonight in the live stream the Korg PolySix and MS-20 plugins against my actual MS-20 and actual vintage PolySix right here behind me. So it's going to be a lot of fun because all of these plugins sound really good. And I think that they're a little bit underrated. By the way, another thing we're going to check out is actually my plugin, Inktomi. We're going to compare this with the effects section of MDE is Korg's plugin for the effects they have, as well as the effects built into the PolySix. I think that would be an interesting comparison to see how they covered that. Nick is requesting some N1 house organ, and they do have that preset in here. I think if I go to program and I go to, it's either going to be an organ or organ 2, I think is it. I don't know why there's that sound in there. Oh, I think it's because I've got a combination on. Let's turn that off. How do I get that off? Program. There we go. Let's try that. And then again, organ 2 should be. Yeah. So that's it. So that's a lot of fun, that very famous house music bassline sound that you hear all over the place now. You know, this sort of... We're going to check out all sorts of sounds. In general, I would say that the digital synth emulations that you get from the Legacy Collection are really, really, really good because they're just, they sound exactly like the vintage synths. I've had an M1, I have a Wavestation just off camera here, and they're like identical. The thing is, let's see here. Mr. Dolly says, just to recap shortly, do you think it's worth getting some of the 3 native plugins for $99? The Wavestate native? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, Wavestate or OP6, all of them are really cool as far as it goes. I don't know. You know, I've already covered a stream with Wavestate, so I go check that out. It's on the channel. Probably about a year ago, we did a live stream looking at Wavestate native, and I was really impressed by the sound. A little less impressed by the interface, and that's kind of the case for a lot of these. Where, I mean, looking at this, it looks pretty easy to get your head around, but they are, of course, all different when it comes to the way the synths work and everything like that. So there's a lot going on with all of these. So let's just go check out the browser real quick, and we can just look at some of the basic stuff. So if we start with, we can search via the types. This is kind of the same on a bunch of the synths where we have different characters. We could just stay in the dance and techno stuff if that's what we're into. But another way we could do it, the way I kind of prefer, is just by going off of the different cards. So what we're looking at here are like all of the cards that Korg released over the years for the synthesizer. And card 1 is actually just the default patches of this synth. So that's the famous universe preset. Just sounds gorgeous, doesn't it? Yeah, Nick, that's actually another reason why I think that the VSTs are so useful, especially for the digital synths. For instance, I love the Wavestation, but it's kind of nice to just be able to browse the Wavestation's patches. Oh, this famous M1 piano. It's like so hyped. Oh, it's actually pretty good. Let's try some brass. Aha, very cheesy. I love that. Very happy to hear about that. Garen says that Op6 is his favorite. I could live without that cheesy brass sound ever again. I think if I was to buy one of the those 3 modern kind of small form factor, I actually think the Op6 makes the most sense for the hands-on part. The problem I have with Wavestate is it almost seems like you need the editor to use it, to program it. And then at that point, I just like, now I'm using a VST on a computer. And I hate that. I'd want to be able to program it live. He's really great. Mr. Dali says that patch is what sold the M1 and the T3. Yeah, for sure. There's much better choir sounds from the M1 than you get from the D50. Let's try guitar 1. Oh, this one's pretty good. Oh, it's very good. I actually think it's better than the Yamaha EX5. Very nice. It would be interesting to shoot that out. Bottle Bell. Ooh. This is definitely, you can hear this, what started the whole Rompler thing, and I get it now. Another thing you can do is add a, like some sort of TAL makes a digital to analog converter plugin actually, that you could throw on this. I think you can get it for free if you buy their sampler or whatever. But the thing is that a lot of these plugins sound really good if you have a little bit of that extra digital distortion, because that is the difference between this and the hardware. Is the hardware, that digital to analog converter is just a little chewier, a little grainier, and it kind of warms up the sound a bit. But on the other hand, this sounds really good. It's kind of one of those things where sometimes you might prefer the plugin because it's super clean, depending on what you're looking for. I think it sounds very nice. Garen says you can't do the wave straight from the front panel. T3, really cool old synth. Really, it's that big? That's terrifying because that's a very large synth. Pan flute? Oh yeah. Very funny. We've got some drums. Kind of like how they're a little gritty. Love that shit. Pan mallet. You can hear how it's kind of already a little samey to some of the other patches, but they're damn good. It's okay, I wish there was a little more time to that. Trumpet? Yeah, not a fan of that. Ooh. What a cool sound. That sounds very cool. I'm into that. Distorted guitar? Not a fan of that. Vibes? Very nice. Pick bass. Hopefully it's got enough pick. Ah. Not into that. Organ too, of course. Flute. Okay. Pole. My biggest problem with the Wavestation, Garen, is it doesn't really sound like the Wavestation. They didn't really give it that sound. Dreampad. Hey, Vulture Mom. So like I said, I'm going to try to run through some of these kind of quickly. So why don't we jump over to Triton, check out some of what's going on over here. And we have, we can just browse again. And there's all sorts of ways we could do this. You can see we could go through the different factory banks, right? There's a lot of stuff in here. And so this is really cool, used by a lot of hip hop artists in the 90s. But to me, this is where, you know, Korg sort of was really trying to make a awesome synthesizer. By the way, guys, can I get a scum cheers in the chat? I have this wonderful whiskey just hanging out right here, a little bit of St. George's single malt. And I just want to say happy holidays to everybody out there. Thank you guys for making every Wednesday night here on YouTube awesome. And I just want to give you guys a big old cheers. So cheers to you guys. Love me some alcohol. So yeah, let's just check out what was in the first 20 or so presets. Oh yeah. There we go. So fucking cheesy. Can I also get some scum, no organs in the chat? I hate an organ sound. Cinematic strings. So I think this is the thing, is that they were able to get some really great sounding samples into this guy. Really cool. French ensemble. And, you know, here we can really hear that, like, we've gone away from the super bright, terrible sound of the 80s and gotten into, it's a little Santa cap. This, you know, a little leopard print Santa cap. But how much better this sounds. You could almost maybe get a chance to kind of, you could fake that into an orchestration, right? Like, or a soundtrack of a TV show. Sophia's Place. Ooh. Whoa, there's some sort of interesting extra layer in there if I hold it down. See, to me, that's the shit that's really phenomenal. Just really beautiful. If you guys haven't checked out Thoughtform's YouTube channel, they're really an awesome resource if you're into 90s ambient. I think their focus is on like liquid drum and bass, that sort of thing, but also video game music that has that PS1 Dreamcast era sound. And they use a lot of Triton, and I think they have the hardware, but you sort of get that sound immediately, that beautiful sort of romplery thing. Oh, I mean, just sounds so good, doesn't it? Yeah, just super cool. Gig split. Kind of nice with a, sort of, and then not the worst organ sound, is it? Kind of into that. Yes. Tomathan single malt. I actually don't know that one, Mr. Dali. Slon, welcome to the stream. I got a better PC, and these are running super low CPU now, so multiple instances are making for crazy combos. Yes, and of course you could say layer the Triton with the Wavestation, all sorts of stuff like that, which is super easy. And very, that's the advantage of, I think, for me, as much as I love the original Wavestation, if you're not using the vocoder in the AD or something like that, this is just such a great option. We'll get to the Wavestation in a second. That's like my most used plugin because it's just so great to have everything there. And I think when it comes to the M1 and the Triton, the advantage is those synths didn't have really great interfaces. But here we can just go through everything, and everything's so easy to edit that it makes it almost like, there's even an easy mode where it kind of shows you like the simple stuff that you'd use all the time, right? I think that's really awesome as far as giving you the ability to, and the fact that you have not just the factory banks, but all sorts of this other stuff. Like we've got vintage archives, orchestral collection, concert grand piano, trance attack. So it's just one of those things where, like, if we're not that any of these patches are going to be particularly good, but let's just check them out real quick. The fact that it's like all built in, so you don't have to think about buying cards. And we can also just like solo these drum kits real quick. So if we wanted to just take this drum loop, sample it. I mean, that's actually kind of cool, right? Green Alert, welcome to the stream. How's it going? Right, so that's also really wonderful. Let's check out a couple more of these. DMB Dub Monster. Let's hope that this does our friend Dubstation Zero credit. Yeah, sometimes the cheese is good, house bells. Yeah. I just gotta try it just off of, yo, what's up, son? Yeah, hilarious. What else is going on? Well, anyways, we can go to Vintage Archives and see what we got here. See if there's anything cool. That's actually pretty cool. Wave sequencer? That is not really wave sequencing. What was Epic House in 1990? Hilarious. 80s movie theme? Funny. What else? Black Rain sounds super goth. I don't know. Not into any of that. What else? Future loop construction. So interesting. I don't even know what's... I guess it's the individual stuff. Yeah. So anyways, back to the factory bank real quick. Let's just check out a few more of these. What else do we have here? Romance layers? I don't know if I had these in the same order. In here, there's their own version of Universe in here. God's bathtub? Oh, yes. Oh, this is what I'm talking about, you know? Just let that keep going forever. See, that's what I love. That sort of romplery sound, and that's difficult to get from some of my favorite vintage synths. They just weren't powerful as the Triton, but it's still got a certain kind of vibe to it that's a little different than, say what else. Does it have the 01W? No, it does not. They don't have that yet. There's no Korg DW8000 yet. There's no Korg Triton yet. Yeah. Slahen, sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Let me know how to pronounce it. Do you like the Korg Prophecy? Well, of course I like Smack My Bitch Up, which comes in the Legacy Collection. The Prophecy is in there, and they've got the patch that Prodigy used for that song, the 303 type sound out of that. Yeah, Garen, I think that the Triton sort of solidified what Korg was doing as far, and to a certain extent, they're still just doing the Triton again and again with like the Kronos and all of that, where it's just like everything you could possibly want, but with that famous Korg sound. But I think this sounds really good, or almost something like the 01W would be the other one that I think would be super great. Line says, I'd love to have the hardware for the touch bar and stuff, even though it's mono. Yes, for sure. Yeah, so Machine Storm, I agree. So here's the problem with the Prophecy for me, hardware and software, is it's just, I mean, to be honest with you, I think the Micro Korg sounds better, because the Micro Korg is the MS-20, which I had that synth. I sold it to Jackie Daggers, but that synthesizer is awesome. It sounds great, in my opinion. I preferred it over the JP8000, although I will admit I was in the minority for that one. The name's pronounced Sloan. So it's Gaelic, so it's spelled crazy. Okay, so Sloan it is. Just remind me, because I sometimes, I'm very not good at this sort of thing, so just remind me. Prophecy isn't as good. Hey, Parbs, how's it going? As the Z1 MOS board for Triton, yeah. I like the MS-2000, which is the same engine as that Micro Korg. So by them making Micro Korg part of the Legacy Collection, I think, I haven't looked to see if they have the Icefields patch, but that's one of my favorite patches of all time. But over here, this is just a really, incredible. I mean, I'm just holding a chord and I can listen to that all day long. Yeah, just fucking incredible, isn't it? Bunch of really interesting stuff. I got that patch I'm going to remember and hold on to, because talk about something that would be so much fun to use in a track. Let's go talk about my favorite plugin, the Wavestation. So obviously it's got Ski Jam and all of that. One thing I'm going to do actually is go into the settings real quick and wave sequencing off. Is that it? What is it? Somewhere in here, I'm looking at it, is the control of the... Yeah, it's somewhere in here, I think. I think that's how you can turn whether or not it's syncing to your DAW. But anyways, there's all sorts of ways to deal with that. You can actually go in and mess with it. But you can see we've got the 3 RAMs that come in the synth. So which all of the, like the one thing I've noticed about the Wavestation, and even when we checked out the H-Card 101, is you just can't beat the original stuff. Like, it just sounds so good. Let me see. Let me just make sure that that's wave sequence sync off. I don't know. There's just so many cool sounds in the original Wavestation. And of course you have the joystick here. And man, I'm still looking at it, trying to see what it is that I have to do to get it to stop syncing with my DAW, but that is a thing. So I think it's syncing right now. Nick always with catching me out on those things. Yeah, there's just so many cool stuff that's in the synthesizer. The way it steps through stuff. But then we can also search by, let's say we wanted like a polysynth sound. These types of sounds. Here we go, just like such a great... Oh, sounds so good. Here's another really cool thing about the Wavestation VST is it actually... Like, if you run a Wavestation, you send the MIDI out of your Wavestation and you send it into this VST. As you move the joystick and change patches on the hardware, like all of your controls on the hardware actually integrate to the VST. So you can use the joystick and change patches, do everything just from the hardware, which I think is such an awesome feature that they didn't have to put in here, but they did anyways, which I think is so cool. But yeah, so we could go check out, let's say, what do we have? Do we have a pad section? No, I guess we got a vocal section. So what do we have in here? Do we have anything? Let's see, what am I looking for? I know it's in the, if we go to the card, what is it? Will I Dream? This is one of my favorite patches. This was used by, what is it, Mark Snow for the X-Files. No, green alert. This works works totally. Nick, I don't think so. I don't think there's any way, unfortunately, to do that. I'm using Reaper. I love Reaper because it is very reasonably priced. You can check it out for 2 months for free, but it's also insanely powerful, and they just do a great job of really selling or updating the software all the time. So I think one of the only problems with the Wavestation VST is that editing stuff is just as difficult. As you can see, it doesn't exactly like lend itself to feeling like the effects is kind of easier to understand, but like going in here and then you have to like edit everything individually. And of course the wave sequences and all of that are hard to edit. So there's just a lot that goes into that I don't love. So yeah, it would have been awesome if it had been the case. I mean, I think that Korg did not intend for these VSTs to really be used as editors. I don't think they were thinking on that level at the time. I think when these VSTs came out, which was quite a long time ago now, they update them. So like, like the bigger screen and all of that, but they haven't really like made the VSTs more powerful since their original inception. And I think at that time, this was before the current like hardware synth craze. And I just think they thought like, no one's ever going to fucking use the Wavestation again. So why don't we just at least release a software version just for those people who do care? Yeah. So with that in mind, I think it's a thing that's really cool. I think they put a little dice thing in here. So if I hit the dice thing, we get sort of random, like randomizes some stuff. So here's a cool one. Like I just picked one. Right. Oh no, I still got some drank here. So we can get another scum cheers in the chat. But then we just hit that and end up with something completely different. Listen to that. We got some drums going on. Wow. All sorts of stuff. So that sort of works sometimes and sometimes doesn't. But we've just also got so many different sounds and stuff that you would never think. Like let's check out Dune. Yeah, so I love the Wavestation. I just think it's the most, like, especially the first 3 banks of presets. So what is that, about 150 sounds? This was just the best of, digital synthesis in my opinion. And it's because Dave Smith was working on it. So yeah. Is there a shakuhachi patch? We can actually search, right? And if we went for, what would that be, like a bell type thing? Piano. Not a bell. I'm looking for like a fluty. Woodwinds. Let's see if we have something that's like that. Pan flute. What's up, Hans? Yeah. So that's a thing. Why don't we go check out the PolySix plugin real quick? So what I wanted to actually do is kind of different than the other stuff, because this does come with a lot of presets in here, including from Richard Devine did some presets and stuff in here. So I don't know why I'm not seeing it. Oh, there we go. So there's all of these Richard Devine presets. Korg USA Bank. Is this like the sort of the default from Korg? This is not, oh, they did put the factory stuff in here. That's kind of cool. I think this is what that is. We'll have to check that out too and see how those compare, if that's actually the real PolySix factory sounds. That doesn't seem right though. Oh, maybe they're not in order, but they're sorted by the name. Interesting. But what I actually want to do is I set up just an init program, and we can compare the PolySix plugin. So this is just the default sawtooth. Right? So if I just play a C chord, we can actually hear how this sounds compared to the actual PolySix right over here. A little bit louder, so I'll just turn it down. So that's a real PolySix in case you've never heard one before. And then here's the same thing. And you'll notice immediately it doesn't sound as alive, but we actually have this analog knob down here and we can crank this up a little. And somewhere around, that actually sounds a little too analog, so let's bring it around, maybe around 2. A little finicky. It can sound pretty good, pretty fast. Here's the original Poly. And why don't we check out the filter? I'm not going to spend so much time because I think it might not be that interesting, but just to compare the... So my thing about the PolySix VST is that to me, the PolySix VST's oscillators don't sound as beefy. And I don't know why, other than I think the way they modeled the filter, like, so what's weird is the filter sounds pretty good. So I'll play some chords here and listen to how fat and actually dark those sawtooth sound, right? They don't sound bright at all. And I just want to say too, this cut off all the way up and sustain everything all the way up, it does not get brighter than this. VST over here, it's pretty close. It's really not that bad, is it? It's pretty damn on. Turn the volume down to try to match it. Yeah, it's actually not too bad. Especially with the analog up a bit, it's actually almost just a little too much. Yeah, it actually sounds pretty damn good. Michael, welcome to the stream. Many years ago, I learned about synthesis with the original MS-20, then 5 years ago, bought the MS-20 Mini again. Now I just bought Wavestation. Just incredible sound machine. Yeah, I definitely think so. And like I said earlier, the sale is going on right now. So if you want to get any of those new plugins or the Legacy Collection, so Nick says, so weird when you go from VST to hardware. I'm like, not bad, but when you go from the hardware back to the VST, I really hear a difference. You can hear they did a good job modeling the difference in the way the oscillators drift. It actually is better than I remember. Low note and a big chord. It's about right. So why don't we do a filter sweep? I think I've got this mapped here to my keyboard, so I can do a nice 50% resonance filter sweep. And we'll do the same thing over here and see how it sounds. So 50% resonance. need to a little bit of noise gate going on there. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? I think it sounds pretty good. Back over to the hardware. Let me just get the noise gates annoying me a little bit real quick. We'll just go into, you can see Reaper here. I'll just bring this down a little bit. And then pull this back up here so we can actually hear it. You can get that really sharp. Let's see how it sounds with more resonance over here. Yeah, it's pretty damn close, I would say. Not perfect. Let's see over here. What resonance am I? I'm about 8 over here. You can really hear how you get these weird, like, inner harmonic stuff. Can you hear that in there? Yeah, so I mean, it's not exactly perfect, but I actually think it sounds pretty good. Maladar, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's definitely hitting like and subscribe does help a lot. So I'm actually very impressed by the VST. I think they got the filters to sound really great. Now, if we move over to, say, the ensemble here, and we'll just add 50% resonance, release, resonance all the way down, cut off all the way off. We'll start to hear a difference here because the original synthesizer is mono output, so there's no difference. And you'll hear a difference, right? The biggest thing is that the envelope generator is much faster, so to get that sound, we have to really open it up. What's interesting, you can hear a little bit of noise in here. Whenever I turn the lights on in here, this thing gets a little noisy. Much darker sound than what you get from the VST. We can fix that though, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the stream. Let's turn the ensemble off and then actually go over to Inktomi, which is my chorus ensemble plugin, and we'll go over to the ensemble over here, and you can hear that we get tonally closer. A little slower might help. We'll get more into that analog sort of sound. I think over on the chorus too, if we compare the chorus out real quick. So let's check out the chorus on the plugin. So here's with it off. Chorus on. We're just at, 50%, right? Over on the actual hardware, you'll notice it sounds quite different. Lose a lot more high end. To me, that's a very digital sounding chorus. You get a nice slow chorus out of it. back over here, if we turn the chorus off, but we turn Inktomi on in chorus mode and make it nice and kind of slow, we should be able to get something kind of similar. So, not to toot my own horn, but I actually think my plugin sounds a little bit more authentic to the PolySix than the actual Korg plugin. And this plugin is free, by the way. The link is in the description of this video. So that's just something I wanted to point out real quick. And of course, it's got a reverb too. So we're still using the oscillators and sounds from the PolySix, but we could get really... really beautiful with very simple results. I also really like the phaser. So why don't we just shoot this out real quick too? We'll just kind of try to put the phaser at about to the left there. There we go. So phaser. So we'll start off with the actual PolySix phaser, and we'll just turn the speed down a little bit here. So here is the, whoops, almost tripped over a cable, phaser from the PolySix. Really great, probably one of the best phasers of all time. Here's the phaser on the plugin. And again, I'm just not in love with how that effect sounds. Here's the oscillators, but with the phaser from, oh, I had that on. So wait, let me turn this off real quick. And here's the sound of the phaser. All right, so that's the thing. Let's turn that off and then turn Inktomi on. Wow. And of course, we can mix it out too. Really thick. Really can't compare it though. I think it sounds so great on the hardware. Just like a jet engine, almost sounds more like a flanger than a phaser. Inktomi is not for Mac yet. That's on the list of things to do. It's coming, I swear. I'm working on another plugin as well, but I'm not going to release that until I have a Mac version for both, because otherwise it's just not fair to everybody who has Macs. I didn't realize when I was working on this that so many people were using Macs. Crystal Love, welcome to the stream. How's it going? So yes, the PolySix plugin actually sounds pretty good, especially for being last generation. I think it's really good. Let's go ahead and see if the PolySix factory bank. Okay, so yeah, this is obviously not possible. I mean, these patches to me don't sound anything like the PolySix. So like, let's look and see what's going on. We got the ensemble. A little bit of resonance just boosting the high end here. Let's see. No LFO, pulse width modulation. Let's see if we could recreate this sound on the actual PolySix. So the first thing is, you know, just a little bit of that action. What is going on with the sustain decay? We'll turn the effects off real quick. I won't spend too much time because I know you guys can't really see what I'm doing, but just so you could kind of get like a rough thing, let me look at the, it's kind of fun that you can actually, you know, turn the knobs to about the same place. We need just a little resonance to brighten it up, and then add the ensemble, and they're not using too much of that, right? Where is that? No, it's up there. It's up around 6, right? So the PolySix obviously just sounds so fucking lush. right? And then over here, you know, it's just so much brighter. We turn the cutoff down. We can get it to sound kind of close. But to me, it's probably going to be... I mean, that just sounds so great. So is it a perfect recreation? No, it's not. Dubstation says, I'm so biased to analog phase. I got a Mutron biphasing on synths. I agree. XCon, how's it going, my friend? So yeah, I mean, where I think the plugins are not as incredible when it comes to the Legacy Collection are the analog recreations. But again, we're not, I mean, for me, it's kind of also one of those things where I'm like, they actually got the oscillators and the analog knob and the filter pretty good. And you'll notice that it's, I believe, the same filter that they're still using in Wavestate native. If you, like, when you use Wavestate, the default filter is the PolySix filter. So, and I believe it's the same thing. Rich Kabasa, how's it going, my friend? Hello, hello. So, you know, they did a good job with modeling this, and I think that this stuff is kind of right. And then for some reason, they didn't really get the effects as well. I'm not saying I did either, because you can hear that they don't sound, the effects on Inktomi don't sound exactly like the PolySix either. But what I will say is that the, you know, that I actually think I got a little closer than Korg themselves did, which is interesting. Let's go check out the MS-20. So, of course, this is really great. And then we can add, you know, we can actually hook knobs up and put them different places and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and hear how this sounds. It sounds really growly. Let's hear how it sounds over here on the actual MS-20. It sounds pretty damn similar. Maybe a little bit brighter, so if we... Well, now that sounds brighter, so... And I'm just going to right click and learn this, and now I can map this to my MIDI controller. I'll do the same thing with the peak of the high pass filter here, or the low pass. And I mean, it's not... The bass note's pretty faithful. One thing to note too is I have a Korg MS-20 Rev 2, right? This might, and I would imagine, is based actually off of the Korg MS-20, the Rev 1. So what we're about to experience in terms of filter sweeps, some of it could also be just an interesting difference in the actual filters they put in the synthesizer. Garen says the MS-20 VST sounds better than the MS-20 emulation in the Kronos. That's not great, because this is an old VST. So I'm going to hit a low note and then do a couple of filter sweeps here. Oh, really? Let me go see real quick. Is that in here? Nope. Roll change? Nope. How do we check? How do we change what kind of filter I have in here? Because I don't see it with my eyes. What would I do to change that? Is it in here anywhere? Crystal Love, help me out. Let's see. Filter. Yes, because it would be really cool to check it out if we had the same filter. So yeah, we'll check out the filter sweep. No resonance first. We'll just turn that all the way off. Not too much of a surprise there. If anything, I'm hearing a little bit more bass from the actual hardware. Let's go ahead and bring the resonance up to 50%. Aquatic, I hope you have a great night and Merry Christmas, my friend. I agree, Xcon. Yeah, so immediately the resonance on the plugin's actually a little bit stronger. Let's take it up to 7. And I'm trying to not speak in between filter sweeps, because as soon as I speak, it like kind of kills your brain's memory of like what it sounds like. So I want you to be able to hear it. So at 7. For me, to my ears, I definitely can hear a difference. The plugin's got a little bit more resonance occurring, but I think in a blind test, I wouldn't be able to tell which of the two is analog, to be completely honest. Let's crank the resonance all the way for fun. Exxon says there's certainly with some serious extra brightness. Yes. Crystal Love says, apologies, apparently I was wrong, can't find anything anywhere. Well, you definitely can do it on the MS-20 full size, the reissue. So that might be what you're thinking of. But as far as, the actual hardware, it could be, or the software here, it might not be possible. Which I don't blame them. I mean, everybody seems to prefer the Rev 1 anyways. So, I'm the weirdo with a Rev 2. So to me, of course, with the resonance crank, that's where you're going to really hear the difference. And what I'm hearing with my ears is a much more mid-rangey sound to the resonance from the actual hardware, whereas the software lets you get really high-pitched. Like that sort of thing around there, I don't think... There is some like super highs, but... Okay, so I'm playing the... I mean, actually... Software, hardware... That's fucking close. That's really fucking close. Like, I'm actually shocked at how pretty much it's there. If anything, I can hear, this is just something that I think every plugin manufacturer tends to get wrong. The compression of the filter is a little bit stronger in the hardware, where it's just a little bit, you get more of the oscillator integrated in there. But that's actually very fucking close, especially because it's a different filter too. So let's see here. Sloan says, how do we petition for DW8000 and Poly 800 for 2024? I think it seems like it should be pretty damn close to coming out. I don't know why Korg would, especially the DW8000, other than they haven't spent the time, like the thing about the PolySix and the Monopoly, for instance, they have the same filter. Triton would have the same filter. DW8000 has a different filter, so I'd have to remodel that. But then they'd be able to get the DSS-1 out of it too. So, that's a thing. Sloan says the full Bucker DW and Poly 800 VSTs aren't bad, but the sound is different. I would love to see DW8000 be the next one. I believe Matt Wright has the same opinion. I'm voting Trident for the next plugin added to Legacy Collection. XCon says the highs sound a bit more muffled, like hidden at the back of the sound mix. Do you mean that on the hardware or the software, actually? Because I think if anything, the hardware sounds a little more mid-rangey. Autumn, how's it going? Nothing wrong with baking. Love a good bake. Why don't we try to see if we can create something. So we'll go modulation generator out into the clock here. So what we're going to do, we'll turn the resonance all the way down, and what we'll try to do is create some sort of, go to about 50%, and what we'll do is out of the modulation generator into the clock, we're going to take the white noise and put it into the sample and hold, and the out is going to go into total, and then we will increase the amount. That's not right. Should be coming in here. Oh yeah, we succeeded, so. Leave it at 50. Peanut butter fudge and lemon and blueberry cheesecake. That sounds fucking amazing. Oh my gosh. How's it going, Xander? Good to see you, my friend. All right, so let's see if we get something close to that over here on the actual hardware. So I'm going to take some patch cables here. We'll go out of the modulation generator into the clock. Where do I have that modulation generator? Frequency is a little bit slower, right? Yeah, something like that. So we're going out of there. We're going to go white noise. There's that white noise into the sample and hold. And we're going to go out of sample and hold into total. This should be our kind of like our basic. And then where do I have the peak is around 5. And then the resonance is, where is that? Like around 8. And we'll see what we got here. Get a little bit more natural noise into there. Filter's a little different because for me, I'm hearing like a sharper cutoff in the hardware or the software. Sloan says, I love Triton, dude. My friend has one, will not sell it for sure. Exxon says, like the software appears to favor the highs. I suspect they do this to simulate clarity and fight the compression, but it ends up producing a slightly different type of sound. Exxon Exxon says, that being said, if you were just to hear it on a blind test by itself, I don't think you'd be able to tell the difference in the vacuum. Yeah, no, that's what I think. Also, the range is a little bit bigger here on the hardware. Software. Hardware. It's fucking close. I mean, if we're being completely honest, I don't think there's a meaningful difference there. And even comparing some other plugins that to hardware synths before, I'm not going to name names, but you guys who've been watching the channel know the ones I'm probably talking about. Yeah, I mean, I think they've pretty much, I think Korg has done a very good job with these plugins. Moving into modular territory. Don't say that, Vulture Mom. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, oh, the Eurorack world. KnobCon was an eye-opening experience to just how complicated shit can get and how expensive shit can get. I thought vintage synths were expensive. I mean, they are, in a way, too. XCon says, didn't register any difference there. Yeah, and that's the thing is, you know, I had to get the knobs a little off, but I'm actually surprised. I mean, what am I? Just slightly over 5, and I'm like bang on 5 on the hardware, right? So I had to tune it a little bit different, but emphasis on the little. Like, it was not a massive difference. I think that, you know, and the fact that you can patch it directly really quickly, whereas, you know, I think it's fun to actually play with the actual cables and everything. But yeah, very surprised. I would say the MS-20 software seems to be actually really spot on. And to my ears, you know, I don't know that, I almost think I might enjoy using the software a little bit more, just because these are very quick to drag around, these cables. And then, how do we get rid of one of these? Get rid of it? I have to do that. Is there a way to, like, delete it? I don't know how you delete it. Double click? What if I just drag it? What if it's here and I just drag it off? Okay, so you just pull it off here, and then it goes away, which is pretty cool. Why don't we try one more of these? But the reason I say is because it's actually very fast to see what everything does, and it's labeled. So you know, EG1 out. The other day when I was trying to do the same sound, I got a little lost because when you're looking at the hardware, sometimes it can be very confusing what's going on. Like, for instance, just don't think about it for a second. Modulation generator, and then we've got an out and then an out. Now that you see the triangle here, and then over here we've got the pulse out, right? But when you're just looking at it, sometimes you'll be like, wait, which is the out, right? I know it sounds stupid, but the thing is that on the software, the fact that it labels it for you, I don't know how well you could see that because I'm keying out the color white from the software. That's why the keys are all kind of funky. And I'm only doing that because if I don't do that, then you'll see the white of the extra space on the software. But I really like that everything's labeled. So you can kind of just get EG1, trigger in, you know, EG2, rev out, reverse out. So why don't we go and try to create another routing over here. I'm going to do the headphones out. We're going to take that and run that into the external signal processor. So this is going to allow us to create sort of the mini Moog trick, and we'll just take the bandpass filter out, and then we're going to run that in to the external signal in. We're going to turn down everything, and we'll turn the signal level down. Now, right now, this should just sound exactly like it did before, right? And I think if I take this out, no difference. As we increase signal level, we'll start getting distortion because we're now feeding back on ourselves. And we have an additional set of filters in there. Now let's see how that sounds over here. So let's turn that down. It sounds fucking good, doesn't it? So we'll take the phones out. We'll run it into the signal in. Signal level down. And we'll take the filter out. That's the same one. Yep. And we'll run that into external signal in. So we should have something that sounds similar. Let's see here. Dubstation says, in modular, it's cheaper to build classic mono voices than to collect vintage mono synths. I agree with that. Once you get a couple of envelopes in LFO, then you can interchange different classic filters and VCOs more economically. Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've talked off stream, Dubstation and I, about how the world of vintage mono synths is kind of not our thing. I have a bunch, but that's because I wanted to try them out. I think the MS-20 is great. I mean, I would tell anybody if they're interested in vintage synthesizers and they want a mono synth, a vintage MS-20 is probably the best way to go. I have a soft spot for the Polyvox as well. Hans Volt has a lot of vintage mono synths, and I think he gets a lot out of them that maybe I don't as much. I'm more of a polysynth guy. I think Dubstation's more of a polysynth guy, and especially it is very cool. Modular is more inherently mono, although it can be sort of poly mono. But in that world, I think if I was going to do like mono synths are maybe cooler in modular nowadays, just because you could do all sorts of stuff like having complex LFOs and stuff. The world of vintage mono synths, they can sound raw sometimes, which is good, but they're just not as interesting to me as the polys. They're often not much more complex than the polys, I think is the problem. It depends, of course. But anyways, let's see what this sounds like. Okay, so at 3, let's go back and set this to 3. So let's see how it sounds comparing. So hardware, software, hardware, software. Now, my hardware might be a little out of calibration, right? It could be. So let's bring the high cut down. Let's just bring it down a little bit. Closer. Let's bring it down. Just, man, I'm actually going to learn this to another knob. Hello? Hey, I'm back. Is this okay? Let's not use that knob. That's a terrible knob. Let's use, I don't know why that's doing that. Let me see if I move this knob. Doesn't seem like that's going to be a problem. So let's learn this knob. I don't know what's going on. Here we go. It's actually easier to get fine control with a hardware controller than it is with a mouse. Pretty close. XCon says, how many drinks do you have? I've seen you raise 2 different cups. I've just got this shot and a cup of tea. I'm a little under the weather, so I've got that throat coat tea tonight. And I was drinking, what was I drinking? Single malt. let's go ahead and get the low frequency cut. Let's learn that. Let's see if make sure this doesn't do anything. Oh, you'll notice that like as I'm moving knobs here, that this is already pre-mapped. So let's see if I turn that off. Yeah, there we go. So you can turn that off, and then I want to learn it to this knob here. Learn. There we go. So we can control the high cut here. And so I can just see that. So I just want to hear how it sounds as I adjust the low cut. That's where you can get those just like awesome screaming sounds. I mean, it's different, but it's not bad. It's a little cleaner, which, you know, I think makes sense. It's a little hotter sounding in the hardware. Little bit of what might be aliasing. Like, so pay attention to the way that, so obviously you can hear the signal, the beefy signal, but it's the way. So there's just the raw sound, but the way that the high end, as you crank the low cut filter, the way the high end just sort of disappears in a smooth, natural way is different than how this disappears. You hear that? There's some weird intermodular stuff happening. Whereas that is just, it's very dirty sounding. The actual resonance is distorted, but it's very clean. There's no like, not really any to my ear intermodular stuff. But I'm getting weird harmonics out of that. So there might be a little bit of aliasing going on. But man, we have pushed this plugin far. Right? And it's surprisingly close, right? I'm very shocked at how good this plugin is. So, you know, the Korg PolySix VST gets like kind of a B- from me. But this plugin gets like an A-. I wouldn't say it's an A+ just because it's not identical. Again, it could just be my MS-20 has a Rev 2 filter, and this is probably based off the Rev 1. So that alone could probably do it. But yeah, to me, that's pretty much as good as it gets. Real quick, let's just check out the ARP Odyssey here. So obviously Korg makes the hardware Odyssey. Let's just check out a couple of the presets. Effects built in, so that's a thing. You can see some knobs moving automatically. That sounds way too thick for a real one. I did have one of these in the studio for a day. Yeah, that's a little much, isn't it? That's a cool sounding one. Yeah, so I no longer, like I said, I only had an ARP Odyssey for exactly one day. So I really can't compare this. And of course, it's got effects and everything as well. So that kind of puts it in its own category. This to me kind of is one of the newer ones they came out with. I think this was Legacy Collection 3, which is their most recent until 4, which came out. So I think this is more competing with like GeForce, right? And you can kind of hear that. I kind of almost, I would believe it's a GeForce plugin just based off of the sound of everything. So yeah, I think we've covered the Odyssey, the M1. We've covered the MS-20, which I think that one sounds really good. I'm a fan of this. Sloan asked, stupid question, do you play guitar or other instruments? I know you do vocals, of course. Yeah, I am primarily a guitarist. As far as like being good at something, I'm good at guitar. I'm decent. I'm clearly not the world's greatest keyboard player. I'm more interested in the sound and how the synthesis works. Ambient Machine says, check out Oddity 3 for the Ever Audi. Yes, so I definitely would love to check out GeForce's Oddity, their Odyssey plugin. We checked out the PolySix, which sounds pretty good. The effects section to me is a little bit not there all the way. The Triton, just awesome. I mean, going back to this one real quick, I just want to just replay the sound. Do I own a Flying V? No, I'm not actually a big fan of the Flying V guitar shape. They're cool and they're good for if you're sitting down too, because you can kind of set it into your leg. But I only own I only own one electric guitar right now, a Schecter C1 Classic, which I've had since I was 15, so I've had it for about 18 years. How old am I? 19 years? Something like that. Wavestation, of course. The greatest of all time synthesizer. I just love the way this sounds. Just love the gritty sound of how it moves through those wavetables. Just so cool. One more thing to talk about here. So let's pull up the PolySix real quick. And let's just go back to an init preset. Where is that? Thought it was in here where I could just get to an initialize preset kind of quickly. Where the fuck? It's in here. I know it's possible to initialize this. I did it before, but no. Panic user template init program. There we go. So one more thing, MDE is their effects that are built into all of their synthesizers. This is actually cooler than it might seem because we've got all of these presets that it can come with, and it's actually pretty surprising. In particular, something I would point out is if we go to feedback reverb here, I love in the Korg Prologue and stuff like that, we have actual like a Strymon big size sort of sound. It's very loud, but you can hear that it's actually got a riser. It sounds more metallic to me than the actual. See that ring in there? So it's got a more of that type of sound. If it goes submarine, it's going to be a darker sort of as the harmonics go down, which is an underused effect. And again, that's just the raw sound of the PolySix there. But I mean, that's pretty transformative, right? As far as sounds go. And we have all of these different effects. So we could say overdrive the sound. So that's a thing. talking modulator. If you want to get those sorts of sounds. The PolySix ensemble. And one thing I liked about this is you have a high damp knob, which actually lets you get closer to the PolySix sound than the PolySix VST. Because just to go back over to the PolySix real quick, when you turn the ensemble on, so without it, you know, it's pretty bright. If I turn the ensemble on, you'll lose a lot of that high end. Right, so you definitely, what is I guess down here? So having that high dampening knob is actually very useful. What else do we have? Multi-tap chorus delay. So this would be actually kind of like the DW8000 has this. So that's how you can get these sort of weird, like flangery type sounds. Or that's how the DW8000 did it anyways. What else do we have? You know, all sorts of different delay types. If you just want like a big hall. I don't know. I don't think it sounds that great. I think that the actual hardware stuff, this is probably like an older generation. I don't know, maybe from the Triton or something. I don't think it's that incredible as far as like if you don't own a really good reverb, this probably isn't it. Again, let's just why don't we just compare with Inktomi real quick? So I'll turn the modulation all the way off, and let's just turn on Inktomi, and you know, 50% reverb. How much better that is. We could actually turn the reverb all the way up here. Little micro bit of metallicness, but it's not nearly as bad as the Korg plugin. And of course, we can mix the ensemble in. I showed how to do that, and actually use that to make it even a lusher reverb sound. That really helps break it up. Not trying to sell out, but this is a free plugin. The link is in the description. Dubstation Zero says, quantized pitch shifting is a new synth effects feature that is being realized in Eurorack and pedals, is taking twinkling risers to new territories. Yeah, there's definitely some really cool stuff. Tone Charm Audio's got a cool new one. I think that stuff is so great, and it sort of is the new default, and I'm working on it. I want to see if I can make it happen in a plugin. It would be really cool to see a version of the Inktomi reverb, but with actual shimmering to it. But for the time being, I still think this is a pretty damn good reverb. I'd just like to point out that what we're listening to is just oscillators here. Very, mad decent reverb. Mr. Dolly asks, is the MD the only effect build in the collection, or do the Triton M have their own effects? They have their own effects. This is just an additional plugin that you can load on top of stuff. And you can see that there's different stuff. Not for everything, it seems. So it seems like the phaser has presets here, but the feedback reverb doesn't. I don't know if you guys can see that on screen. Certain things do, and certain things most of them do, but not all of them, I guess. I don't know. It's just, I wouldn't say anybody's buying MDE on its own, but it's a nice thing to have, and it's kind of like a cool vintage vintage digital type of effect plugin. So if you want something that doesn't sound super awesome like Inktomi, then you could use this for a reverb. I think this would be more useful for a lot of the other stuff that they built into it, as opposed to using it for the reverb. Reverb didn't sound that good to me. I would just use whatever's built into the Triton, Wavestation, etc., etc. So, yeah, I think that's where we can leave it for tonight as far as the actual discussion of the plugins and everything. I think they're great. So the sale goes on till probably about midnight tonight. So if you're watching this live stream in the future, I apologize. Still worth checking out the Legacy Collection. And they always do sales in the summer and the winter. You could wait till June to get some of these, or you could just buy one plugin. I think that's what I did originally, is I just bought the Wavestation plugin, and it's not that badly priced. And I still think the Wavestation plugin is the best way to get that Wavestation sound, as opposed to, I love the hardware, but the hardware's finicky, right? Whereas the plugin's just like everything's there. You've got every single card. It's probably true for the M1. MS-20 plugin sounded awesome, like just sick. PolySix plugin, not all the way there. Maybe a C+, B-, somewhere in that area. So yeah. Mr. Dolly says, it's not that the effects were specific good in the old 90s effect of the M1 series. Just bought the collection. Awesome. Well, if you heard that, Korg, hook a brother up. So that's like one of the things about my other favorite vintage digital synthesizer is the Roland D50. But what I will say about that synth is the first time I listened to the reverb on its own, as opposed to like Eric Persing's incredible patches he designed for it, it was like heartbreakingly bad. Like the reverb is not good in the D50. But there's something about how when you take the samples and the synth, virtual analog stuff and the digital filter and the EQ and the chorus and then the reverb, you stack it all up and it's like the sum is greater than its parts with the D50. It just kind of all starts to sound great right at the end. But if you were to just take anything and run it through the D50 reverb, terrible idea. It's not good. It's not awesome. Awesome, Nightshade. That's sweet. So yeah, Korg, you owe me some commission money. I'm just kidding, but also send me a new synth. I would love to. So here's the thing. People ask me about like what's my favorite vintage synth company, and I probably have to admit that Roland probably made the best stuff, but I personally love Korg. I think that they always pushed the envelope and made so many cool synths. I just love the Korg sound, especially DW8000, Wavestation, the sort of romplery stuff they came out with later. I just think Korg stuff sounds great. Korg Prologue, awesome synthesizer. I feel like it's probably me and Matt Wright and Miles Away are the YouTubers who really appreciate that synth, and it's a shame that it's not a thing anymore. They're not making any. They might make, an epilogue one day, the final prologue. What's crazy about the prologue is it had a polyphonic LFO, which is something that other synths at the time didn't have, but it just didn't allow you to assign that. Like think of it this way, there's a 16 voice synth with polyphonic LFOs, so it's 16 additional analog LFOs in that thing, but they wouldn't allow you to use 3 of them for monophonic LFOs so you could route it to different destinations. Like, it's just an oversight. Mr. Dolly says the area MT32 and the other Roland stuff didn't have good effects. The reverb was, well, they were there. Yeah, for sure. Garen says, I've been in a love-hate relationship with Korg since 1989. Something about Korg. I keep going back. Yeah, I just think that Korg stuff sounds good. They have a very good ear. They always have. And they have a tendency to try to hit the market at just a little bit cheaper than everybody else, so they'll strip out stuff. Sometimes that doesn't work for them. I think with the Prologue series, it didn't work for them because people are like, there's not enough modulation and there's not enough. That this keyboard should have had aftertouch. And it should have. The fact that Wavestate Mark II still doesn't have aftertouch is like mind-blowing to me. Crystal Love says, just got all the Prolog presets for my Minilog XD. Someone converted the presets online. Give a search and you can get them. That's awesome. Here's another thing. I mentioned it at the beginning of the stream, but I don't think you were here, Crystal Love. Look up T-Sonic's Viper oscillators. They just came out this week. I think they came out yesterday. It's an oscillator, user oscillator that has the DW8000, the Ensoniq SQ80, which is, where is it? It's right. Oh, it's I got up against the wall because I got the Prophet 600 here. But the ESQ1, DW8000, Kawai K3, and PPG Wave oscillators for the Prolog or Minilog XD. It's awesome. It's all done additively. It's like $20. I definitely am excited for that. Dubstation says, excited for the Poly 800 stream. So I'm going to do a video on the Poly 800 before I do a stream. That was the idea anyways. I want to do a video comparing it actually to the PolySix. I know a lot of people are saying I should compare it to the Monopoly, and that kind of makes sense because the Monopoly's got a more similar architecture. But to me, it was more like the PolySix is... I just like the PolySix. I just think it's like a great legendary analog synth. And if I'm going for like the 80s thing, the Monopoly is more of like an experimental type synth. I don't think it does what you want necessarily all that well. If you just want like a pad or you want a lead, it's okay, but it's not like, it's more about doing weird shit you wouldn't think of. So with the mindset of, you know, the average musician who wants to add some like vintage 80s sound to their setup, whether that's like a hardware setup or they're a software producer type who wants to have just like one vintage synth, the question for me that's interesting is like, is a Poly 800 good enough? And spoilers, I think the Poly 800 is great. I was shocked at how good that thing sounds. I was expecting it to sound pretty bad, especially because I know a little bit about its oscillator, how it's like sawtooth wave is built up of multiple square waves, so I was expecting it to kind of sound lo-fi, kind of like a Casio or something, but that's not the case. It actually sounds really good. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Anyways, I think that's a good place to leave it for the night. I had a great time. I especially took away from this stream that I should use the Triton and M1 plugins more because they just sound great. And I love that sort of romplery sound, but still like that vintage digital character to it. I think that's pretty awesome. And the other thing being that the MS-20 plugin, I should use that too, just for learning the patching better. Because it's just sounded so fucking close to the real deal, which is surprising. You know, this is like last generation's technology. These are not modern VSTs. Have a great night too, Autumn. I'm out of here. So yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I don't know what I'd do without you guys. You're phenomenal. And yeah, continue to be excellent. And I'll see you next week.